Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Council's Cabinet, which will be webcast. Now, before we start the proceedings, can I bring to your attention some housekeeping matters? There's no expected fire alarm testing today, so if it does sound it's real, please get out. Using the fire and emergency procedures and leave by the nearest fire exit, which is that one there. Not very clearly marked, but that is it. Can I ask that you use your microphone when addressing the meeting and it's switched off when you're not addressing the meeting? And can you make sure your mobile devices are turned to silent? Okay, we'll start with item 1, apologies. Councillor Sudan is not with us today, but everybody else is here, I understand. Is that right? Yes, indeed. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest in respect of the items, any of the items on the agenda? No? Marvellous. Minutes of the meeting that we had in August, on the 12th of August. Can I sign them as a true and accurate record, please? Thank you very much. And then questions from the public, which is item number 4. There are no questions from the public today. Is that right, Jamie?
That's correct, Leader.
Thank you. And so we move on to Chair's urgent business, which is item 5. Do I have any urgent business? No, I do not. Which is just as well, because we've got a lot on today. The first thing on the decision today is Armada Way. So it's another crucial day at the office for us today as we discuss a report about the future of our city centre. You remember last meeting we had no objection to the bid renewal, you'll be pleased to know. We're moving on from that to talk about nothing less than the transformation of Armada Way. And it's great that we've got 3 representatives, 3 stakeholders from our business community here today. Very esteemed guests indeed. Stuart Elford is here from the Devon Chamber of Commerce. Stephen Hughes is our City Centre Manager, and Nigel Godfrey, of course, the Chair of the City Centre Company, and it's great to see you all here. I'm going to ask Councillor Lowry in a minute, who is our City Centre champion, to introduce the report. I also need to welcome some council officials here today. Sorry about this, but Paul Barnard, who's had a lot to do with this as the service director, a little bit of it. Service Director for Strategic Planning and Infrastructure. Martin Ivert, of course, Regeneration and Placemaking Manager, is here as well. We might ask them for a few words later on as well, if they're good. But let's start by reminding ourselves why, in fact, we are making the investment. Jamie, you've got a little video to show us, haven't you? Do you want to put that on now, and we'll do that first? bad. It's going to look better than that in real life, though. It's going to be really important that that we're making this investment. People need to understand that this is about the future of the city centre and the future of the city, right? Today, I'll be mentioning this again, we've been cited nationally in the national press as a great place to live and work, which means that we press on from there. We don't sit on our laurels. This has always been an important project. And the reason we're making it is because we have a vision for the city centre. We want to reimagine it as a modern, vibrant, and mixed-use destination with a new community living at its heart. We're going to create a town within a city, is what we've described this as. And of course, you know, it's particularly important not just for the visitor, but with people living there. It's going to be important to remember this will be their backyard as well. This will be their local park. This will be, amongst other things, it'll perform a lot of functions for them. So it's really significant. On the 21st of August, I hosted a visit by Sir Oliver Letwin. Now he's now on the Homes England board. And well, he was mightily impressed by what we got planned, to be frank with you. Do you think that was right? I mean, we had a good old wander around from the railway station down through Armada Way to the Hoe, and really showing him exactly what we had in mind and how important it was. And we're going to host the whole Homes England board in Plymouth during November. Chief Exec will be down, and we'll have a good old session on that. And we hope to be able, as a result of that visit, to make a few more announcements about the future of the city centre, which will please everybody, I think. You know, we've set out ambitious targets for house building in the city as a whole, and the city centre is going to be fundamental to us achieving those targets. You know, not to put too fine a point in it, cities of our size on average have about 8,500 people living in the city centre. We've got 850. And I know that was a deliberate post-war policy to move people out of the city and put them in the suburbs in the Abercrombie plan. But actually, the city can take density. The city can take more people living in, and we're going to make that a reality. So this investment in Armada Way is vital, and we buy into the vision by putting our money where our mouth is, I suppose, and also not just our money, because the report will make clear, and Mark will in a moment. It's not just our money, by which I mean local taxpayers' money, but we've assembled a mighty coalition of funders, partners to deliver this. And what this will mean is, it's by showing this intent, the signal we send out to investors is that we're not just making plans, we are starting to develop those plans. And hopefully that'll get them to buy into the vision and make further investments. You know, we have been here before. Don't forget when David Mackey brought his vision to us all those years ago, 20 odd years ago now. He talked about recovering the spine of Armada Way. He said that it was tired. He said that it needed a refresh, and that was 21 years ago, right? So it's important that we do this. And of course, we started that job. I remember one of the first things I did was to make the decision to close the subway and to start that ball rolling. So it's been a little gap between then and now. But look, you know, we created the piazza, a heart within the city centre that we didn't have before, and now it's such an important stage for so many events that we have on in the city centre. But it'll be one of many things that will be able to take place in the city centre as a result of this. Anyway, I'm not going to talk much more now, but I would like to bring in Mark at this point because you've had so much to do with bringing this project to the state it is today, Mark.
Thank you, Chair, and obviously with the support of hundreds of other people to get us here. But I think it's fair to say that the Armada Way project has had a challenging birth, which we've all been on a journey with. And I can kind of think of it as a bit like an ugly duckling at the moment. And with the work that we hopefully undertake, that we've seen in that fly-through, and with the support of hundreds of workers, we're going to bring that fly-through to some reality, and we can move forward and do the development that we actually need. So, but before I do that, you'll recall back in February of this year, the 19th, we approved the design of the Armada Way project, and we instructed the Strategic Director for Place to take all necessary steps to confirm the final construction costs for the approved Armada Way design, and to report back to a subsequent meeting for the Cabinet to approve that design. The results of that process are set out in section 3 of the report before us today. Additionally, Cabinet also instructed the Strategic Director for Place to establish a City Centre Public Realm Board to coordinate and monitor all existing public realm revenue maintenance budgets and oversee new income in regeneration initiatives. Those are also set out in section 3.8 and 3.9 of this report. Members will also recall that estimates of the scheme reported to scrutiny were the worst case scenario, and since February, officers and specialist independent consultants have analysed all the detail in the tender documentation from the contractor and a detailed bill of quantities. Further trial pits and surveys have also been undertaken to verify the costs and assess the risk to delivery. The total construction costs for the scheme have now been verified at £29.8 million. Nearly 2/3 of the cost of this scheme will be funded by external sources, meaning that the total direct cost to the local taxpayer is now £11.2 million. And this is set out in section 3.7 of the report. I would also like to say that I hope that in moving forward, we can further reduce that £11.2 million by applying for further grant funding when it becomes available, and of course developer contribution as that also becomes available. In implementing the Armada Way scheme, we'll also need to be mindful of other projects coming forward in the city centre. These projects include Royal Parade, which is another one of Councillor Coker's Transforming City Funds project, and the District Heat Network pilot, which is also subject to a report for Cabinet today. I'm also very mindful of the development that's going on in respect of Old Town Street and New George Street, and those have caused a significant amount of disruption in our city centre, particularly for traders. And I would just like to make the point that as a city centre champion and as a member of the city centre board, we have made it perfectly clear that our intention moving forward with this project is we must do in a manner that does not affect the operation of the existing businesses that exist on Armada Way. And in doing so, we have 5 specific actions to make sure those businesses are supported through this project. 1, if we agree this report today, we will write to city centre businesses immediately setting out the details of the programme and how they keep up to date with the proposed works. We have appointed a dedicated Armada Way liaison officer who will be the single point of contact for all city centre businesses during the construction works. This will be based in the Knowledge Hub along Armada Way. We will also hold regular question and answer sessions starting later this month, addressing the concerns and issues that businesses may have. We will continually update our website with new information about the progress of the scheme, and we will continue to liaise with City Centre Company on all aspects of the Armada Way scheme throughout its completion. As I said in February, this is a do or die moment for the future of our city centre. When I reflect on what's been going on in Old Town Street and New George Street, and when we met businesses, they did not want to expand, they did not want to invest in our city centre because of the state of our public realm. I can assure you now, new businesses who come to our city centre and see the work that's been undertaken in Old Town Street and New George Street are actually wanting to open new businesses. And the same, of course, was likely to happen once we complete the works in respect of Armada Way. Just to give you some statistics, are we getting value for money is a question that I'm bound to be asked, and one that obviously challenges us quite a lot. So you've heard me already say the works that we've put into ensuring that these costs are robust. Those trial pits we've done, the surveys we've done, the QSs we've employed, the consultants we've employed to give us some rigour around that cost base. And I'm done as much as I can do, if I'm honest. There's nothing more I can possibly do. Hopefully we don't have another pandemic that might affect things, but fingers crossed, we move forward. So just to give you some statistics of what's going to be there. You've seen the fly-throughs. So the new play village is the size of 5 tennis courts. And the seating will accommodate approximately 500 people. There's an entirely new CCTV system that I'm sure Councillor Hayden will speak to us about. There are 5,159 square metres of accessible green space, similar to the size of the park on West Hope. New granite walkways of 6 metres either side, a new cycle path of 500 metres, and 22,000 square metres of accessible public realm, which is, 22,000 metres. None of us can get our head around that, but so that's about the size of 3 football pitches. That's actually a fair amount of space for us to use. And of course, a new sustainable drainage system providing up to a 78% reduction in the surface water runoff, which goes into our combined sewerage. So I repeat, we have looked very carefully at the cost, and I am assured by the work that we've done and making comparisons that this is value for money. I appreciate it's still a lot of money for the city to invest, but we'll invest in that money wisely to the benefit of the existing businesses in the hope that we can attract new business and, of course, provide the much needed housing in our city. So, with your indulgence, as you've said, we've got Stuart, Stephen and Nigel here. Perhaps they might be able to give us their views on the subject matter. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Well, the bat in order is your choice.
Thank you, Tudor. Thank you, Mark. We've been talking about the regeneration of Plymouth City Centre for a long time. As chair of the City Centre Company, which represents more than 500 city centre businesses, I would like to congratulate the Council for its commitment to this scheme and to the city centre. Armada Way no longer serves its purpose as the confident gateway to the city centre, and instead gives the visitors a poor first impression of the city centre in decline and too many empty buildings. Now that has to change. These plans, which are fully supported by the City Centre Company, present us with a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a safe, welcoming and vibrant city centre. It is just so important that we get this right. Quality public realm drives quality investment, which drives value for us all. Many of you may know of my time at Sutton Harbour. Working with the City Council, the regeneration of that area in the early noughties was kick-started with the construction of the lock, which in effect created the quality public realm of a non-tidal harbour. That same quality was then the focus of all subsequent development, and the area now stands proud as to what it is today. The City Council are to be quite seriously congratulated on its commitment to the quality of Armada Way scheme, because this will set the language and the quality template for further regeneration, perhaps the city's most prized asset over the next 20 years or so. And that's why your decision of support today is of fundamental importance. Through the City Council's efforts and sheer tenacity, we've already seen how the city centre is changing with the recent investments in the Box, the Barcode, Civic Square, New George Street and Old Town Street, where new businesses are quite literally now snapping up the empty properties. We know that these investments in the city centre, together with the proposed Armada Way scheme, will unlock millions of pounds of further investment for housing, leisure and other uses to give us the city centre we need and which the city quite rightly deserves. So we urge the Council to support the plans for Armada Way as the essential next step in our new look city centre.
Thank you very much, Nigel.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'll just add to that a little bit. I think Nigel, set out what the city centre company thinks very, very well. But I just wanted to talk about sort of my experience really in the sort of day-to-day dealings with 500 city centre businesses. And they've been crying out for the regeneration of Armada Way for quite some time. So shortly after I started, which I think is about nearly 7 years ago now, one of the businesses took me to the upper windows in Armada Way at night and asked me to look down, and they said, look, we need to sort this out. It's a bit of a no-go area, particularly in the evenings. And I think it's no secret, really, that all of us within the council and the city centre company, the chamber and elsewhere, we've known what we've needed to do for quite some time. It's just been incredibly challenging for all of us. So I'm really pleased that it's now coming together and that the funding streams are available. And I would echo Nigel's comments that we really need to get on and do this now. And what I'm really excited about is I think the new public spaces in Old Town Street, New George Street, and what you're planning to do in Armada Way gives us the stage to put on more events, more activities. I think that's absolutely vital in this new ambition for more people, the community that you're talking about, to create that community, get people living in our city centre, get people back into our city centre to enjoy events and activities and festivals, not just 3 times a year, but all year round and by day and by night. So the way that it's been designed, thanks to all the hard work of the council and the officers, decluttering it, the new lighting, the new CCTV, just gives us that huge opportunity, I think, to really put the city centre in the spotlight. And I think that will help us, as we mentioned, encourage these new businesses in, a new cafe culture, more outdoor seating, and we'll have a city centre that we can be really proud of. So I think, yeah, absolutely vital that we crack on now, and I'm really pleased that we've got as far as we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Stuart.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to speak to Cabinet. It's an honour to come and represent business in talking and supporting about these much needed improvements. This long overdue investment is a clear signal of ambition, confidence and leadership. It will get Plymouth talked about for the right reasons. It will appeal to businesses and employers, and it will attract and retain investors, inward investment, talent, especially for highly skilled and higher paid jobs, and university students who will go on to become employees of the local employers. It's more than just shopping. It will create jobs. It will make the city centre a thriving place, and that is a big point for people, for young people, graduates coming to the city. They want to live in the city and have the city centre experience. It will help develop the evening and visitor economy. For too long, our city centre has kind of died at night, and we need it to be a vibrant place. It will encourage new uses for empty buildings, likely to include hotels, meeting rooms, and much needed conference facilities for business. Overall, this will help grow the economy and benefit all Plymouth's existing businesses, but attract even more. My one sort of caveat ask, I'm glad that Mark Harris covered it, was about communication. Please work with businesses to reduce disruption, hear what they have to say, make sure there's access for their suppliers, for their customers, keep them informed on comms. But it sounds like you've got that well covered, but I'm thrilled to support this. It's much needed. Our city centre is one of the first things people see when they get off the train, and we need to, if we're going to attract the skilled jobs we need to deliver the things like the continuous at-sea nuclear deterrent, we're going to need highly skilled jobs, and people aren't going to come to a city that isn't representative of the sort of lifestyle they want. So I'm very pleased to support this idea.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, you heard it from our partners. Now I'd like to ask members of the Cabinet if they've got any perspectives on it. Can I start with you?
You can start.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to briefly remind Cabinet that at our meetings on the 5th and 19th of February earlier this year, I set out in some detail the thoroughness of the Let's Talk Armada Way consultation and how this administration had bent over backwards to respond to this and the recommendations of the Growth and Infrastructure Overview and Scrutiny Committee in revising the plans for Armada Way. We've listened And as we've just heard from Councillor Lowry, we've now finalised the construction costs. Notwithstanding the wider budget challenges we face, as the report makes clear, we found the funding, mainly from sources external to the council, to deliver the design for Armada Way that we agreed at our February meeting. I want to say again how excited I am about the Armada Way scheme. It demonstrates our aspirations for enhancing the quality of the public realm in the city, but also this administration's wider vision for creating a truly transformed, modern, thriving city centre, which meets the needs of the people of Plymouth. And I remain of the view that Plymouth deserves nothing less than the best. And I truly believe we're doing the right thing for now and for the future. Walt Disney famously said, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So we're going to begin doing to deliver this visionary scheme for our city centre. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much indeed, Jemima. Anybody else got any views? Tom?
Thank you, Leader. As Councillor Lang's just indicated, we approved the design of the new Armada Way scheme at our meeting on the 19th of February. So I won't repeat all of the background studies, surveys, assessments and design work that's been undertaken to ensure that the new scheme achieves wide-ranging environmental benefits. The Armada Way scheme will have a total of 202 mature trees, more than existed there before. We are enhancing provision for wildlife through shrubs, wildflowers and reed beds, as well as bee hotels and bird boxes. We have further improved the design following the Let's Talk Armada Way consultation by increasing the diversity of tree species, allowing additional underplanting, as well as greening the grey, all of which were specific changes achieved by listening to residents and community groups. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to paragraph 2.2 in the briefing report. I think everyone knows that the proposed sustainable urban drainage system, which forms an integral part of the scheme design, is essential for the city centre's adaptation to climate change. However, it is also important to future-proof new housing and job creation in the city and support the National Marine Park. As paragraph 2.2 states, the existing peak surface water runoff has been modelled at 311 litres per second. The implementation of the Armada Way SUD scheme shows that this will be reduced to 68.5 litres per second, equating to a 78% of surface water being diverted away from the combined sewer system in heavy rainfall events. So not only is that good news for the wider city centre and its future growth potential, that's very good news for water quality, which we all care about hugely. I now believe we must get on and start to deliver the Armada Way scheme, not least because of the environmental and climate adaptation benefits it will bring. Thank you, Leader.
Tom, thanks very much. Sally Cresswell.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to repeat what I said at our February meeting when we approved the Armada Way design. For me, there's this big aspect of the inclusive nature. And I think the new play village is a really exciting of the part of the Armada Way proposals, which will hopefully attract a lot more young people and children to use the city centre in future. As promised, and this is really important, the scheme has also been critically reviewed by Make Space for Girls, who recognise the many positives of the scheme for younger and teenage girls. We will continue working with them to tweak some small elements of the design to make it even more welcoming and accommodating for this underrepresented demographic in public realm and play spaces. The scheme we approved is an inclusive design, and I keep coming back to this inclusivity, which provides opportunities for young people of all ages, which is so important, not just for their mental and physical development and health, but also for their intellectual development as well. I'm pleased to see that in finalising the construction costs, we've retained the ambitious part of the scheme, which will provide places for our young people to socialise, while the pop-up spaces proposed will also help to provide opportunities for outdoor music, art and informal recreation, which is so important. This is a scheme for all Plymouth, and for our children and young people of the city. And I'm really excited to see us working together on this project this year. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Sally. Sally Hayden.
Thank you, Leader. I warmly welcome the Armada Way scheme for 3 reasons. Firstly, it will improve safety by introducing a new enhanced lighting along Armada Way, which will support the nighttime economy and make people feel less vulnerable. Secondly, it will provide an all-new CCTV system that, unlike before, will provide a significant enhancement coveraging, allowing to help address antisocial behaviour. Also, the new system will help the police and the city centre company to make our city centre safer. Thirdly, the most importantly, it directly addresses the recommendations in the Violence Against Women and Girls and reported in the relevant to personal safety matters in the city centre, showing our commitment to taking practical steps to address this important issue. Leader, the Armada Way scheme is not just a landscaping project, as some have described it. It is an integrated set of proposals that will help in addressing a much wider set of challenges our city centre faces. And it is for that reason I strongly support this scheme. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Sally. Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Leader. Armada Way is a key part of our Transforming Cities funding programme, which comes to an end in March of next year. I will be delighted to tell Cabinet about the rest of the achievements of that programme on another occasion. Armada Way is going to make much needed improvements to cycling and walking infrastructure within the city centre and meet all guidelines currently set for government for walking and cycling infrastructure. It will also help to reduce our carbon emissions, not only in the city centre, but as a city altogether. That is why the Transforming Cities Fund is putting in over 4.5 million towards the delivery of the scheme. This cycling scheme and walking scheme has widespread support and will help us achieve our existing commitments in the joint local plan to deliver sustainable transport measures for our growing city. Crucially, the new infrastructure will also enable the foundations to be laid for an incredibly exciting expansion of city centre living. With more people living and working in the city centre, footfall for businesses will increase and vacant and historic buildings will be repurposed, which also supports all of our commitments in the joint local plan. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Mary Ashman.
Thank you, Leader. I hope you will indulge me in that Sudan, because she couldn't come today, has left me a few comments as well, so I'm pleased to read those out. We all know that much of Armada Way currently is inaccessible to people with various visual and physical impairments, which is why it needs modernising. I also welcome the provision of inclusive and sensory play as an integral part of this scheme. I hope that we can continue to work with PADAN throughout the construction phases of the scheme to ensure that careful consideration continues to be given to those whose needs are based on visual and physical impairments. And a message from Sue. She says, my view, as I said before, is that Armada Way scheme will give our city centre a new dimension. I am very hopeful that the redesign of this huge space will encourage a wider range of interesting active, social and cultural activities that will give local people more reason to come into their city centre. They will stay longer because there is more to do, and that will be of benefit to existing shops. The investment we are making as a city council will then attract new private sector investment, which will improve the retail offer still further. something probably close to her heart. New shops will give local people and visitors even more reason to visit the new city centre we are creating. This all enables an upward spiral, making the city centre a vibrant and interesting place to visit, which is what we all want to see. She strongly supports the scheme and agreed that we now need to get on with it.
Indeed we do, and we will, Mary, we will. Chris Pemberthy.
Thank you, Leader. I want to give you two different perspectives on Armada Way, if I may. One relating to my cabinet responsibilities for housing, and one relating to my ward responsibilities as one of the ward members for St Peter and the Waterfront, where the city centre sits. I said at our February meeting that housing is a top priority for Plymouth. Since then, this administration has set out its own ambitions for accelerating housing delivery when it approved Plan for Homes 4 in March. We highlighted our ambition to deliver a minimum of 5,000 homes in 5 years. We also highlighted the need to unlock the city centre's future potential as a place people choose to live, focusing on delivery of a wide range of homes to meet housing needs as well as placemaking. Since our February meeting, we now have a new Labour government who see addressing the housing crisis as a central part of its primary mission to deliver economic growth. Leader, as you've already said, we're developing a strategic place-based partnership with Homes England, led by Tracy Lee as our Chief Executive, to create a town within the city by delivering a step change in housing in the city centre, with all the obvious benefits that will bring. I'm very excited by this opportunity because Armada Way unlocks the amenity space, the drainage and utilities needs, without which the housing cannot be built. Armada Way is vital to that ambition for housing. And if we don't build in the city centre, we're going to have to build on green spaces. So let's build in the city centre. Secondly, as one of the ward councillors for St Peter's and the Waterfront, I want to strongly welcome the provision of the Play Village. You and I, Leader, have knocked on doors around Brettonside many times. For people living in Brettonside, there is no local green space, there is no local play space. And some of the most deprived residential areas of the city don't have benefit of access, easy access, to large, really landmark type play facilities. And paragraph 2.4 of the briefing report highlights this. It's estimated that over 23,000 people will be within a kilometre's reach of those play facilities. Hundreds of children with access to good play relatively close to home. And for some, those around Brettonside not having to go to Teats Hill or West Hoe or Beaumont Park, actually having a park that is relatively close to them. Leader, on those bases for those local residents, this is more than just a bit of city centre public realm. And so the investment is more than public realm. It's more than housing. It's more than play. It's more than critical drainage. It's more than walking and cycling. It's actually about creating a place in our city centre for our local residents to live, work and enjoy. I really support this scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, indeed. Before I sum up, Mark, There's been, certainly for a few months, quite a bit of chatter about the cost of the scheme. There have been some people who perhaps should know better, have been saying that there was always enough money in the budget and we have been profligate. Could you give us a sense of when, when it was discovered that there wasn't money in the budget as had been previously promised?
Well, when we first took control of the council back somewhat 18 months ago now, Armada Way, for obvious reasons, that had gained an awful lot of publicity in the weeks and months before, and this was a priority for me, so to establish what monies were available. And it was indicated to me on sort of day one that the expected construction cost would be in the region of 25 million, potentially more. And there wasn't 25 million in the budget to take those works forward. A significant shortfall already existed at that time and contingency hadn't been made for that. But clearly now we have a robust design that's been approved by Cabinet. We've undertaken those trial pits to establish utilities and surveys. And so therefore we have employed hopefully the right people with the skill set to take this project forward and get a firm cost base, which wasn't the case previously. So we have now, and I didn't allude to the timescale, so I'm very pleased with Cabinet's contribution today. Thank you all very much for supporting this scheme, because you've all set out exactly why it is incredibly important. This isn't just a small piece of public realm. Like I said, it's one of the largest public realm projects in the whole of the United Kingdom. And if you approve it today, then we will start work on the 1st of October. And phase zone 1, which is the COP4 into Mayflower, will start on the 1st of October. Phase 2 will start on the 2nd of February next year. And phase 3, the latter parts around Cornwall Street and Sundial, will be July of next year. And zone 4, just for clarity, the piazza works that we were planning to do, we are still planning to do some piazza works, but we're not doing them at the moment because, as you've already heard and you've seen in the press probably, we're doing extensive work along Royal Parade, so we need to tie those two things in properly to ensure that we're not digging things up and putting them back, because that just upsets a lot of people unnecessarily. So I'm very pleased that hopefully today you will approve this project and entrusted me, along with the support of hard-working officers and partners, to deliver this project on behalf of the city. And I'm sure it won't be the ugly duckling I referred to at the very beginning. It will be something that we're all immensely proud of and will be a catalyst for change in our city. So thank you for everyone's support and continued hard work moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
That's great. Well, our working officers, yes. Martin and Paul have been in many a meeting with you, and more than you more than most of us, but we've been with you quite a bit. I think we've spent a lot of time on this, fellas, haven't we? I think it's fair to say. And, that's right, because, it's a project of immense significance, not just to the city, but, well, from what you say, it'll be a defining project in terms of the city's history, to be honest. So I just want to thank you for all the comments and the perspectives that you brought today. Thanks to the City Centre Company for coming here today. That's very kind of you, and at the Chamber too. And the voice of business has been heard loud and clear, not just today, but over many months. And I hope you'd acknowledge that the council's been, demonstrating its support for the city centre for a number of years. But in terms of what we've achieved over the last few years, I mean, you mentioned a few. Don't forget, the Guildhall. When we adopted the Heritage Action Zone project, some people saw that as a sort of, almost like an essay to the past. But actually, what we've used it for is to reinvigorate the city centre, a classic city centre, if you will. And our investment in the Guildhall will bring a new music and theatre and comedy venue and all sorts in that Guildhall. And, you know, this is a fantastic facility that we're investing in right now. And it's the kind of facility that, as you diversify the base of the city, that we want to see at the city centre. It's fantastic. Our plans for Marja Way recapture the scale and the grandeur and the vision of those councillors who had the foresight, dedication and commitment to include such a bold proposal all those years ago in the 1943 plan for Plymouth. We get a bit shy in this council about reflecting on what we are achieving. I keep saying we're making history here, because we are. I mean, everything that anybody does in real time is making history. But if you look at the aggregation of all the investment in the city centre over the last 10 years, I think it stands up to any examination with any era of the city centre's history in this century, last century, and the century before, I have to be honest. So let me just remind you, in the debate on the reconstruction committee of the, when they putting that 1943 plan together, Sir James Clifford Tozer said, "Let us have courage, determination and vision to take advantage of this opportunity and do something really worthwhile, not only for ourselves, but for future generations." And he said that in 1943. And I'm saying that those exact same words, I can't improve on those words actually, because they're magnificent words. And they're as relevant now in 2024 as they were in 1943. And Armada Way has stood the test of time, but it is time to now make a new Armada Way, a revitalised Armada Way. And I've always said, you know, Plymouth deserves the best for the city centre. I believe we've been playing our part. I think it's on a par, as I said. Many of you, I'm sure, will also be familiar with the 1946 Jill Craigie film called The Way We Live. We've seen it a few times, and that very accurate representation of the City Council meeting in that film, which I'm sure Harry Enfield would have based a number of his sketches on. But nevertheless, the point about the film was that Armada Way was central to part of that film. And it ends with a famous call to action, which, again, I think we'll leave you with today because it's as relevant now. Cities of tomorrow, what will they be? Who can tell? For their story is still being written by the citizens of today. So on behalf of the citizens of Plymouth, today's citizens of Plymouth, I invite today's Cabinet to agree the recommendations in the report, and let us not talk, let us do. All those in favour, please show. That would be unanimous. Thank you very much, and thanks once again. And could I thank the officers and Martin and Paul in particular for their stay in the course when it has been a rocky road. Many more rocks to move, but we're determined to see it through. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to item number 7. And while the guys leave, I'll just want to say something I should have said at the start. The last report actually was the property of Anthony Payne, who was our director of place, who we said goodbye to at the last cabinet meeting, I think. Certainly, well, there's been a number of occasions on which we've said goodbye to Anthony. But today is a day to welcome Kareem Hassan, who's our interim director for growth. I hope you enjoy your time with us, Kareem. We're really looking forward to working with you. And Kareem will be with us for some months now ahead. And what a time to join, I think. It's a pretty good time to be joining us. Things are happening at breakneck speed. And speaking of things that are happening, Tom is going to introduce this next paper on heat networks delivery approach, which is on page 53 of your packs. And the floor is yours, Tom.
Thank you. Cabinet, it gives me great pleasure today to present this report on delivering a new strategic heat network for Plymouth. This is truly a momentous milestone in our mission to make Plymouth a net zero city. We know that heat is the largest user of energy in Plymouth and accounts for around 28% of our total city emissions. We simply cannot become net zero without bold action to decarbonise heat. Yet it is one of the hardest sectors with a whole range of different buildings and ownerships. The development of heat networks is something that Plymouth City Council has recognised for some time. It's been an objective incorporated into every climate emergency action plan and net zero action plan since we made the climate emergency declaration in 2019. But we have made persistent and determined in pursuing the delivery of what will be a highly ambitious and complex project. Our efforts have been recognised nationally, having been selected by DESNZ as one of the 17 cities in its advanced zoning programme. Our involvement in this programme has created an opportunity to accelerate progress significantly by providing an at-scale approach. Out of this work, we have identified 2 separate zones which offer the greatest potential for deliverable heat networks. The largest is for a strategic heat main in the southern zonal area, which will be principally around 2 large waste heat sources, the South West Water Plant in Catdown and the Devonport Energy from Waste Plant. Rollout would be in phases from 2026 to 2050. Phase 1 will include the university area, the civic quarter and Mill Bay. The second is a Derriford zone with a focus on the hospital and Plymouth Marjon University. This is a longer-term opportunity. Annual carbon savings with full build-out for both zones have been estimated to be 31,000 tonnes of CO2. I can't state quite how much that intervention will be in terms of impacting our journey to a net zero city. We know from recent market engagement that there is strong interest from private sector heat network developers with significant investment to deploy. I've met regularly with independent legal and commercial advisors who have helped identify and evaluate the different options for delivering the strategic heat network. On the basis of this evaluation, which includes an assessment of risk and reward, I propose that the best route to delivery for this exciting project is through a City Council-led procurement. This option does not require any capital investment from the City Council, as we are able to support the project in other ways. For example, through bidding for grant from the government's Green Heat Networking Fund, securing in-principle agreements with potential customers and connecting our own council buildings. But it does, and this is crucial, allow us to make sure that benefits are secured for the people of Plymouth. For example, for incorporating measures in the contract to secure local employment and training opportunities, as well as safeguards for communities who are experiencing fuel poverty. I realise that we've got a lot of things on the agenda today, but in summary, I wanted to ask you to agree today an initiative which will deliver at least 10 wider benefits. I'm going to quickly fire through those. 1, deliver over £350 million of investment in green infrastructure over a period of over 20 years, with a first phase commencing next year involving approximately £60 million of investment. 2, kickstart Plymouth's most significant opportunity to decarbonise heat. 3, to create around 400 direct green jobs and develop local capacity and green skills. 4, provide businesses and residents with the lowest cost decarbonised heat. 5, enhance our city centre as a location for investment. 6, improve air quality by reducing harmful nitrogen oxide emissions. 7, improve water quality in Plymouth Sound by capturing heat from the warm wastewater before it is discharged from the South West Water Works. 8, improve the city's energy security by reducing our dependence on fossil fuels for meeting heat demands. 9, improve our resilience to the adverse impacts of climate change by providing decarbonised cooling options. And 10, deliver long-term energy cost savings for buildings, including on our own estate. Leader, last year this administration was elected under a Plymouth Labour manifesto that put green investment as one of its 5 key pledges. This £350 million plan is the clearest example yet of the environmental step change that we are starting to deliver. My recommendation for this Cabinet, therefore, is to endorse this approach to delivery and to delegate the subsequent business case and associated decisions to the Service Director for SPNI in consultation with myself. Thank you.
Well, you set up the case really well. The exciting bit was all of those jobs, all of that investment, and at no cost to the council. Yippee-doo, magic. Tom, this is hugely significant. I suppose a skeptic might say, why, where's the money to be made for these companies that invest in this large sum of money? Could you explain exactly what happens there?
So this isn't new technology, is the first thing I'd say to anyone that's sceptical about it. There have been various cities across the country who've been operating in this space and run heat networks very successfully. The reason why we've decided to go down a procurement route is we want to make sure our values are at the heart of it, but we're not necessarily in a situation with capacity or the skills to run a £100 million plus energy company. So the opportunity is to get private companies involved, so they're coughing up the capital, but that we're influencing the values behind that. And companies are increasingly noticing that this is the future. The 2021 Energy Act, which goes into huge detail on zonal opportunities, which this would become part of. This is the future of heating in large sections of this city. So there are companies who are in this market already. They see the opportunity here in Plymouth. They're very interested. And we believe that what we're putting forward today is an investable proposition, both for investors, but also for businesses and residents to benefit locally as well.
Any questions from anybody? I mean, I know you guys have, I don't want to ask you to speak if you don't want to speak, but Tom pretty comprehensively covered it there, didn't he? You sure? Is that okay? So I've got one more question. I mean, Tom said there were people queuing up to kind of do this sort of thing though. So this is a growing market with growing providers. How confident are you that people will be interested in Plymouth?
So we've done market testing. There are 10 main industry players working in the UK, other new entries coming into the frame. We've got some very positive responses from our market engagement. There's a variety of funding streams behind them, including pension funding. So looking at a sort of 40-year plus long-term model, which suits this type of infrastructure. A lot of those funding streams are very carbon driven as well, but also because we're part of this government advanced zoning programme, there is a real spotlight on Plymouth at the moment.
It's almost an invitation for us to do it right there, isn't it? Brilliant. You happy if I put it to the vote? Is that okay? So the recommendations are on page 53. All those in favour, please show. Thank you, Mark. That's carried unanimously. So we'll hear back from you from time to time on how things are going. But the ball's in your court now. Thank you very much. This could be the start of something really big, couldn't it? I mean, really big. Yeah, thank you. Right, I think we'll move on in that case. The next item is agenda item 8, and Ruth will be joining us online, I think. Hello, Ruth, and Caroline, I think. And then this is Chris Penworth, who will be taking us through this one. Chris?
Thank you, Leader. We're not joined by Caroline today. We're joined by Nick, the our new public health consultant who's been working with Ruth and I on this. Back in the heady days of 1997, the council last approved an anti-poverty strategy. What we're not bringing you today is an anti-poverty strategy, but we are aware that since that time, poverty has remained an important focus of council's activity. In fact, so important that lots and lots of our strategies and action plans make reference to it and specifically take actions to try and tackle it. What we're bringing today is a position framework on a position paper on developing a framework to bring that under one story and seek to strengthen the work that the city as a whole is doing to tackle poverty. The work will focus in 3 areas as a framework. How do we stop people falling into poverty in the first place? If people are in poverty, how can we help them to help themselves out? And if people are in poverty, what can we do to mitigate? So what are the short-term sticking plasters that we can help do that until people are able to look after themselves? And actually, our response to the cost of living crisis was exactly that. It was, where are some sticking plasters needed that we can use to help people at this point of crisis? But it is clear we do need to take a longer term approach. No matter how much we've done, over 20% of children in Plymouth continue to grow up in poverty. And we need to ensure that we do more work on helping people to lift themselves out of poverty, to be able to earn money that is better money than they're earning at the moment, to be able to understand health systems and how to use them, to be able to get better jobs through better skills, to live in better housing, to enjoy culture and to have their horizons widened by the cultural offer of the city. Every little bit across the work we do touches on this. So we want to map what we're already doing, identify where we can join some things up and do them a bit better, learn and celebrate what we're doing well, identify any gaps, and build a framework from that that brings our work into some form of cohesive whole across all the different strategies that will continue to work and lead on the things they're doing. This is by no means a takeover grab. I'm very happy for Sally to lead on skills, and for Tom to lead on the environment, and for Mary to lead on health, and for Jemima to lead on children and on culture. These are all important elements, but actually we can do some better joining up between us all. Poverty is a complex issue, and it's one that the more you delve into it, the more you realise the complexities of it and the impacts of it. But it is really important. It's important enough for one of the very first actions of the Prime Minister being to set up a cross-departmental task force, jointly chaired by 2 Secretaries of State, hosted by the Cabinet Office, explicitly to look at what national government can do to tackle child poverty. Joseph Rowntree Foundation are upping their ante in the area, and others are too. So doing this at this time puts our city on a twin track, an opportunity to join in, a chance to shape, but also whatever else is going on, it gives us the ability to tackle better poverty in the city. And I think actually that's what drives a whole load of the officers I've met with over recent months as we've been talking about this. So it is in some ways a very simple thing we're asking. We're building on everything that we've got. Tomorrow, the Child Poverty Action Group, assuming we say yes today, discover the full range of their next year's activity, and the list that they are giving them is quite substantial, because we are going to be taking this seriously. And that's sort of coming from me as the cabinet member. I think Ruth and Nick can probably just give us a little bit of a flavour of some of the things that I've sort of skirted over at a high level. And I think Ruth has some slides to just help us understand that more visually.
Thank you, Chris. I will hand over to Ruth.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that, and obviously very thorough introduction there to the work that we've been looking at doing. So I'm going to hand over midway through the slides to my colleague Nick, who is with you in the room. So as Councillor Pamberdi says, building bridges to opportunity is about providing a framework to shape how the council and its partners are working together across Plymouth to tackle poverty. And it's building on existing council-led initiatives and collaborations. Some of this work has been ongoing for quite a long time, but we want to really bring it out into the open so that we can really focus on it. And the work at the moment is in the engagement phase. So we are taking a little bit of time to make sure that we're consulting with all of those partners and collaborators across the city on how to do this. It's not new to talk about deprivation and poverty in Plymouth and the impact of that. And you're very used to seeing this map where the darker red areas shows our areas of more concentrated deprivation in contrast to the blue areas. And we know that we have more residents living in deprivation than the English average. And that is why we are really wanting to tackle this. Nearly a quarter of our residents are economically inactive, some of those through long-term sickness. And many people are reliant on lower skilled and low paid work, which sometimes may not be of the best quality. It might be irregular hours, 0 hours contracts, for example, and that can particularly impact on women. As Britain's ocean city, we have a huge amount to offer in terms of our built environment, our natural environment, our rich cultural history, and all of those many assets that we have in our communities. And so what we want to do is build on that and pull together the economic output that we have, the growing workforce that we have, and the very strong public sector anchor organisations that we have across the city. There's been some huge initiatives recently that are really drawing on some of this, such as the Plymouth Sound National Marine Park, which offers lots of opportunities, not just for jobs and those sorts of resources, but also for the green and blue spaces that we have around us. We know that Plymouth's economy is driven through marine and also defence, manufacturing, medical and digital industries. So a lot of areas of strength across our city. And what Building Bridges to Opportunity wants to do is help to set an environment where people don't fall into poverty in the first place, where they can lift themselves out of poverty, where it's made possible for them to do that. And if they are in poverty, then how can we ensure that they experience the least harm possible? And we want to look at all of our many strategies and plans through these lenses. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Nick now, please.
Hi everybody, I'm Nick, I'm one of the registrars in the team, and just as warning at the start, I do have a speech impediment. If it all breaks up, I'll be able to actually restart. But anyway, on this slide, what we're going to kind of the overarching understanding in this work is that there aren't any quick answers to actually addressing the people in our population who are living in deprivation and in poverty, and actually that with these sorts of issues which are complex, we need to take a whole systems approach, looking at kind of our work and the work of our partners and people in the communities, and also looking at interventions across kind of the whole scale, so looking at things which are supporting the whole population, but also looking at some of the targeted interventions which may support particular portions of the population, and that in particular kind of when we're looking at supporting people who are living in poverty and kind of addressing some of the harm that they're experiencing as a result of that, and to help them to move out of that. Those bits could require some more targeted approaches, but also there's other bits about actually preventing people falling into poverty, mainly kind of that kind of a more broad approach. We're also aware, and we talked about it a bit in the paper, is that actually all of poverty, so child poverty and adult poverty, is all oh sorry, I can't speak. It's It's multi-generational, so we see it across the kind of the whole people across all generations. But it's also actually actually generational as well. So we can see the people who are kind of children who are living in whole families which are experiencing poverty, that can then have a long-lasting impact on their childhood, also on their adulthood. And as a result, we also need to be looking at interventions across the whole of the lifespan. And if we move to the next slide. There, so I shan't actually dwell on these, but I think it's evident that the kind of work on poverty addresses both actual policies at the local actual level. So there's already quite a lot in the Plymouth Plan about how we address kind of economic inactivity and poverty in the city, but it's also addressing some of those kind of wider actual policy, actual directions at the kind of regional and at the national actual level. And equally, on the next slide, we, as was mentioned earlier, lots of our work in the council and lots of the work which our partners are actually doing are already working towards addressing poverty and improving the lives of the people who are living in Plymouth. So as we've mentioned earlier, the plan for the kind of whole of the year is to first to actually develop a actual framework based around those three actual lenses, which is actually specific to our work, the work of our partners, and the needs of the populations, looking at how do we actually co-develop the local actual framework. After that's been actually developed, we'll then move on to examining how our existing work and the work of our partners fits in with the framework, where there's areas of excellence, and if there's any gaps or any shortfalls, which we may also look to address, and then also to actually share and to celebrate the learning from that.
Thanks very much indeed, Nick. And so, do I throw it back to you, Chris?
I think if no one else has anything to say, I think a big thank you to Ruth and to Nick for the work they've been doing on this. Tracy, you and I have had lots of discussions over many years about how do we tackle poverty, and it is not easy. I'd like to pay tribute to Giles, who's obviously no longer with us, who's helped get us here, and not here as well, Caroline and her team from policy, who've also put lots of time and effort in just trying to help us think it through. I think we're now at a point where we are in a good place to go forward because we've worked out an approach, because it is an approach of building on things that we're already doing and building people's capacity themselves. It isn't about forcing people to do anything. It's not about handing out loads and loads of money. It's actually about putting these things together and giving people the tools they need. Because we all know that the best way not to be in poverty is to have a good job. And the best way for children is to gain the skills. And it's almost that simple. Good education, good health, good housing, good employment, and we'll tackle it. We can't do everything on those, but we can do a lot. And I think it was as we began to distill through those that we thought, actually, there is a way forward here because we'd never tackled it before. So I think, thank you to everyone. And recently I sat down with officers, and it was a whole load of officers on that call. And I think we started the call a bit overwhelmed and ended the call feeling really quite energised, still overwhelmed, but thinking there are things that we can do by doing it together. I think Cabinet accepting the recommendations today mean that we'll be back with you in 6 months, and 6 months after that, and 6 months after that. It's going to not just be me and a champion at the point that hopefully we get one of those, or with just the child poverty group. Actually, this is going to be all of us just doing a bit of a review. What the child poverty group are going to do is they're going to follow Gordon Brown's advice. Gordon Brown said that if national government was to look at all of its decision making through the eyes of a child, it would make very different decisions. And I think the Child Poverty Group is going to look at all of these strategies and their impact on poverty through the eyes of a child, and then go back to those strategy owners and say, have you thought? And say, we've actually spotted some bits that could be joined up a bit. So we're going to not only have those three pillars, but a team of council backbenchers looking at this alongside our city partners through the eyes of a child. And I think that will be quite revolutionary. I think we're probably way ahead of most councils on this because we have that cross-party group. And I think tomorrow when they get their new terms of reference and we begin to build forward, this could be exciting. It will be about how we begin to work a bit differently and join up some of our really big, exciting strategic things and how we take this forward. But I would really like to say thank you to everyone who has kept this on the agenda and who has persisted with me, as I keep on saying, there must be something we can do rather than just say it's too big for us. So thank you for that opportunity, and I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing where we as a city, doing what we do well as a city, can come on making some differences locally, backed by a government that says they want to tackle poverty and child poverty at the same time.
I think it's an incredibly important start of a journey that we've already been on, if I can put it like that. But congratulations to everybody for all the hard yards there they have put in, and for the ones that are about to put in. Thanks, Nick, for coming and doing that for us today. We're doing the economic plan refresh at the moment, and of course, work, jobs, pay, skills, they're all part of that mix, but that is just one part of the old puzzle, isn't it? And the work you're doing on housing as well, and all of those other things. Everything we do is pretty much going to touch this, as you've put in the paper. So yeah, it's great to see it all written down for the first time in this way, really. So there are recommendations, as you mentioned, to come back to us in a few months' time, 6 months' time, and to appoint a champion. Happy to do that, but I need to put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Agreed. Thanks, Nick, and thanks to everybody, Ruth and the team who are behind this report. I'm going to move on, if I may, to item 9, pretty much on timer, which is the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Sufficiency Plan. Now, this is on pages 99 to 156, so it's quite a big report. Sally's going to talk to us about it for a few moments. And we've also got, Lisa and Amanda and David is here, of course, to answer any awkward questions or straightforward ones that you might have as we go through this. All right. So, Sally, the floor is yours.
Right, thank you, Leader. Before I start, I'd like to welcome, we've got parents and carers, some in the room, and also online of Milford School. And not only do I want to thank them for their presence, but also for their understanding and the way that they have worked with us. Because this is a very important piece of work by this council. It's about some of our most vulnerable children, and it's about each and every individual child, and it's something I care absolutely passionately about. I always go on about this, but I've worked in primary education for 30 years, and I'm really pleased that we are actually starting to get to grips with this, with our SEND sufficiency plan and our need. My background for 30 years means that I am probably really quite well placed to understand both the importance and the urgency, and you will probably hear in my voice as I speak a real passion and belief and commitment in this work. So thank you for indulging me for that welcome at the beginning. Like many areas of the country, Plymouth has seen an increase in the number of children who have an education and healthcare plan, an EHCP. Considerable work is underway across the partnership to support children within mainstream settings without the need for an EHCP, and this work will take time to embed and will not replace the need for special educational provision across the city. Data analysis has been completed, but the rapid recent rise during 2023 of applications for EHCPs indicates that the forecasts are likely to be on the lower side of actual future numbers. Current analysis indicates that the city will be short of at least 105 special school places by 2030. Due to capacity pressures within Plymouth Special School Estate, the city has found itself in a position where it's had to place children in independent special schools, ISPs. There are currently 376 children and young people in Plymouth who attend 37 registered independent schools and post-16 settings. It costs an additional £43,422 per year on average to place a pupil with an independent provider compared to placing that child in the Plymouth School Estate. This equates to an additional £521,064 per child during the academic life of a child or student. The total cost of these placements for the financial year 2023-2024 was approximately £8.6 million. Expansion within Plymouth will also help as well to reduce the pressure on the home school transport service budget, as children will not be travelling out of the city. The current cost of providing home to school transport to independent school providers provision is 1.177 million. And if I could also add to that, it isn't just about the actual costs, and obviously that is a factor, but it's also about making sure that we put our children and place them as near to home as possible, and that we are actually making sure that children are near to home and in the best possible provision where they will have all the benefits that they actually need. Having a long journey to and from school is not the best thing for any child, and particularly for some of our most vulnerable children. Funding. Now, the local authority has funding from what's called the High Needs Provision Capital Allocation Grant. It's another acronym, I'm afraid, HMPCA. I will keep repeating things in full rather than the acronyms. And this grant can be used to increase the number of special educational places that are available within Plymouth. We currently have £13 million of that actual grant. All future expansion currently needs to be funded via this grant. There's no additional funding available. Although there is currently no additional funding identified, this does not mean, and I count myself on this, we will not continue to lobby central government and the Department for Education requesting additional funds for SEND and provision with our children in Plymouth. And I can really wholeheartedly give my commitment, in fact, to that. And I think that goes probably as far as the leader and other people around here and other professionals, that we will be lobbying really hard on Plymouth's behalf. And not on Plymouth's behalf, it's about our children. Recommendations to increase capacity for 2024 to 2030. This plan outlines a range of options to expand our special educational provision, which should be delivered and funded from the available grant. The plan also outlines an option to turn available space at Woodlands into special school nursery. There's currently no indication that we need to expand the number of places for school-aged children at Woodlands. And I would point out that this is a really important part of the plan, because the other thing it supports is, in fact, early intervention, which long-term will benefit both the children, their families, but also has a cost saving as well. Resource provision. The plan also outlines proposals to increase resource provision within Plymouth. Plymouth already has several provisions meeting the needs of SEND pupils across the city based on their learning support needs. Now, in resource provision, a child will have access to teaching assistants and specialist teachers aligned to their particular need. But the resource provision is not intended to be isolated from the rest of that school community. So resource provision is within a mainstream school, and it should be fully integrated into the day-to-day life for the children and day-to-day life of the school. And I'd say, in fact, that real inclusion has positive impacts, not just for the children who have special educational needs, but it also has really positive impacts as well for other children who are in the mainstream part of the school as well. It really is a symbiotic relationship, and also a real benefit to teachers and professionals and teaching assistants who can actually share good practice and use it to the best benefit. This option would see new provisions being established to ensure that children can access this type of support within the community. The option would also offer an additional 50 to 75 places across the city. And I emphasise again, within the community, it means children actually staying within their own community schools, within their community, not necessarily having to travel huge distances across the city itself. Milford. The condition of the accommodation at Milford is poor, and the buildings are in need of total refurbishment. Full structure and condition surveys are underway and have been completed to identify any underlying issues with the fabric of the building, which would prevent alterations or refurbishment. The next phase of development for the school will be feasibility studies to determine how the school could be remodelled to improve the condition of the accommodation and to increase capacity. Additional building for long calls. A building has become available next to the current long call site, I think it's the old grammar school, and the option to purchase this is being explored. If this was successful, then this could offer an additional 100 places subject to internal remodelling and refurbishment. New build to replace Milford. Although there have been plans in the past to build a new school which could replace Milford, currently there's not the funding for this option within the HNPCA. A new build would cost approximately 26 to 35 million, depending on the design and the construction. But that, as I'm going to come to again, that does not prevent us from lobbying national government on this and recognise there's nothing to stop us from putting pressure on national government and asking our MPs to do the same. Our children. The SEND Sufficiency Plan outlines major expansion of our special provision across the city to meet the needs of our children with special educational needs and disabilities. Our plans for expansion are based within existing school, and any building or refurbishment that is undertaken will have to be very carefully planned to keep disruption to students and staff to a minimum. Our children with SEND often do not adapt easily to change and will find the development of their school challenging. This can often then impact on family life, and we must strive to keep this disruption to a minimum. I'm very excited about these plans, I really am. Our children are our future, and ensuring that we create an environment where they can thrive is essential for the future of the city. I'd also add one or two other things. If we get things right for our special educational needs children, then we will get things right for all our children. And finally, Leader, if you could indulge me, I'd like to end by saying thank you again to parents, to staff, to our head teachers, our senior leadership team, to our officers and such who work so hard to deliver the best for our most vulnerable children each and every day. Thank you very much. We are very grateful.
Sally, thanks very much for that heartfelt introduction. This is where I throw a curveball or two at our officers who have kindly shown up today. Sally took us through. Is there anything that she left out there? It was a comprehensive introduction, but is there any further information you think we need to know? Please, Lucia.
Thank you. And it was a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Sally. I think it's important to note that the SEND efficiency plan on its own will not do the job that we need to do in the city, because our development of great inclusive practice across all of our schools in the city requires a really strong ordinarily available provision and graduated approach in every single one of our schools. And so please be assured, Cabinet, that that work sits alongside this sufficiency plan, and we are not purely relying on this to meet the needs of all of our children.
That's a really well-made point. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. I've met with the team and gone through this report in some detail, and Sally rightly pointed out some of the additional costs that's coming as a consequence of the lack of sufficiency in our SEND system. So I would like to add an additional recommendation, because this report sets out a number of options, but doesn't dictate what those options are at this stage and its subsequent implementation. So I don't know who's responsible, but I think it might well be Kareem's department for the implementation of actually doing the work to provide the necessary project management support and technical guidance in doing the works from the SEND team. But can we have an additional recommendation to report back to Cabinet with a plan for the implementation of the SEND provision, please? Or words to that effect.
I think that form of words will do. Amanda?
The delivery of the plan will be delivered by the Strategic Capital Project team. That they have already said that they will be overseeing the delivery there. So we have put a governance framework in place around that. Ultimately, the project will feed into the SEND Strategic Partnership Board, but there will be a SEND Capital Board sitting underneath that, and then an operational group underneath that. So the actual delivery will be delivered by the team within Paul Bernard's department.
The point is, I think the point that Mark is making is we're a bit busy.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot going on in the city at the moment, and where we're probably a little bit short at the moment is in that we haven't got enough people with the right skills in the council to do this job, and all the other jobs that they have to do. So what's really important is rather than us just passing this now and waiting 5 years for a gap to appear before we can deliver it, is actually to, first of all, to understand the shortages of staff, to deal with it, and to have a plan for implementation of this quickly, because it can't fail and it mustn't be held up through want of that. So that's why we've put this motion, this additional recommendation in, okay? It's not a criticism of anybody, it's a simple reality check on the amount of skilled people that we've got in the council right now.
Yeah.
But we need to get more of them and quickly.
Yes.
Right, that's it. So that's what that's all about, okay? Nothing to worry about. Yeah, well, I think we'll toss that over to you, Kareem, if that's all right, because there's a number of projects that's fallen under Kareem's bailiwick at the moment that need sorting, so it would fit in nicely with that piece of work. Okay, thank you. So we'll add that recommendation to the one that's published on page 99. Any further observations? Any further questions? I mean, this feels like a very important day at the office. I mean, we've had 3 important days at the office so far today, but this feels like the start of something, of a corner turning, I'll be honest. I mean, obviously, you know, the report we had and the judgment we had about our SEND provision was a wake-up call to the council, I think. Your arrivals helping move us on as well, Lisa, you know, and this project, I think, will be significantly helpful to everybody. And can I associate myself completely with your remarks about the parents and how understanding they've been? You know, we've got some catching up to do, let me be straight with you. And we're determined to try and do that as best we can, as quickly as we can, for the benefit of everybody. Okay, so the recommendation, as I say, is on page 9, as amended by Councillor Lowry. I'll just wait for those two to finish. All those in favour of, oh, I beg your pardon, I'm most remiss of me, Sally. Would you like to sum up?
What I really want to say is I'm really grateful to Councillor Lowry for bringing that up, because I think it shows this whole cabinet commitment, in fact, to our SEND children, and is putting them like at the very top of the agenda and really high priority. And I think that's really important, and that's a really important amendment to actually come out of this. This is a whole cabinet responsibility, and I just take this back to Giles, when we had a something of a demonstration of parents of SEND children, and it wasn't just actually Plymouth; it was right across the southwest, and it actually had such an impact. The parents talked to us really freely, really well. We had really, really good positive discussions. But what came out of that, I can remember being at a cabinet planning meeting in which we were asked what were the biggest priorities for some of the biggest priorities for this cabinet and this administration. And the first thing that Giles said was SEND. And I think we've actually shown that now by putting this and this additional recommendation is actually, again, it's not just about words, but it's actually about actions as well. So thank you very much for that, Leader. And again, thank you to all of the way that parents and children and leadership of schools and such have actually worked with us.
Okay, excellent. So all that remains now is me to put the question to you. Do you agree recommendations 1 and 2? All those in favour, please show. Thank you, carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Amanda and Lisa, thank you for showing up today. And we look forward to hearing how it's going in due course at the Cabinet meetings, okay? Thank you, brilliant. Right, if I could now move on, please, to item number 10. This is called Recommissioning of Adult Care Homes. We've got Mary who's going to introduce this, and Emma, here she is, hello, and Karen as well, brilliant. So, I will invite Councillor Aspinall to open the batting.
Thank you very much, Leader. As you're aware, we have contracts in place at the moment, but what we're asking is for the new business case to actually be extended so that we have time to look in further into what our plans are for the following, and put the case to go for a 12-month extension, please. For some of our most vulnerable adults in our city, residential homes provide essential care and sometimes nursing care to support our residents who need intensive support to be well cared for. We know that good quality residential care helps people to be well looked after in a warm, safe home, with opportunities to socialise with others and to stay in touch with their families. Within the Plymouth city boundary, we have 89 care homes, ranging from those who support the under 65s with complex needs, to nursing homes for older residents, and a broad range of needs in between. We currently have just over 1,000 of the council's adult social care clients placed in residential and nursing care, with 10% of these placed away from the city. The annual spend on residential and nursing care for our adults is £50 million. So this is a significant part of our support for those with adult social care needs. We try as much as possible to give our vulnerable adults and their families a choice of residential care, so it is essential that we have a good range of high quality providers and homes to work with. Added to this, with the ageing population, we know that demands for residential care, and particularly dementia care, is likely to rise, and so we also need to be planning for the homes that will be needed in the future. Our current contract for our residential care homes is expiring at the end of December, and the commissioning team has spent the last year working with our providers to understand what we need to have in place and how we can achieve this. And we really want to get it right, so hence the request for the extension. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, Emma?
Thank you, Leader. So yes, we know that so much has changed for our residential care providers over the last few years. They're at the forefront of a great deal of difficult times and fantastic support through the COVID-19 pandemic. They've been dealing with the rising cost of living, and they're also been adapting to care for those we know have more complex needs, including dementia. This is the contractual bit, so stand by. We know our contracts are now becoming out of date because of all those things, and they don't reflect the reality of what we need for residential care for our citizens, both now and in the future. So we need to update what we are seeking to commission through our specification and our contract terms. But we also want to be able to really clearly signal to our providers where we would like to see growth in the future and where we would like to work with them really closely to adapt homes in the city to meet needs. So we're seeking permission to extend our current contracts for a further year so we can take the learning from all our provider events and engagement work and carry out a procurement during 2025 of our residential and nursing care homes. We're also seeking for the award of a new contract to be delegated to the portfolio holder for health and adult social care, where they would not already have the authority to award within the scheme of delegation. I brought Caroline with me today. Caroline Patterson and her team lead our work in this area, together with our colleagues in NHS, Devon, ICB, and Caroline's going to share a bit about what we've heard and learned through the last year.
Okay, so we're really, really grateful. We've spent the last 12 months talking to all of our care home providers through our Dignity Forum and some focused workshops. They are really, really supportive to help us towards, developing that model to meet people with complex care needs. So what we've learned so far is that environmental factors such as the location. Our care homes range from a 1-bedded care home to a 64-bedded purpose-built care home. A lot of them will be in Victorian builds, probably not fit for purpose, so our care home environment is not great. They've also shared with us that the funding model that we've got for meeting people with complex care is not enough, so we need to do some more work to try and decide what that funding model looks like. We've talked about staffing levels and training. And again, to sort of provide more training around supporting people with complex needs. So they've shared a lot of reflection and through our forums in respect of some of the factors that are really stifling their ability to support people with more complex needs. So what we want to do going forward over the next 12 months is we want to continue to work in partnership with Live Well, with the Acute Trust, with our care home liaison team. So we want to develop that work much more going forward. We want to build those relationships. We have one Admiral nurse in the city, and the Admiral nurse has been going in and supporting our care homes, but we need much more in respect of that support. I think ultimately it's about the wraparound support, so we can talk about fee modelling, but actually if we get that wraparound support right and we get key partners really supporting that care home, they feel quite vulnerable on a Friday evening when they've got a client with complex needs and they can't get hold of older person's mental health or some other colleagues. So if we can really bolster that going forward. And already, quite excitingly, this month we've got the launch of the X-ray car. which is going to go out to our care homes, and they'll provide x-rays and scans within the care home. It avoids people going up to the hospital in transport, and it's just a much nicer way, really. We're also going to launch the Hive training programme, and that will be a group of training providers across the city, so that should be much better for our providers, share some of those resources in respect of training. So we want to look at technology, and we really want to continue to engage with our provider market. But more importantly, I think this 12 months is really going to be about the voice of the service user. I feel we need to capture that, and we need to listen to our residents in the care homes. So we want to have a real focus on that. So those are our plans for the next 12 months.
All right, thanks very much indeed. So basically, give us a bit more time. And in order to have a bit more time, we've got to extend the contracts for those we already got.
Yeah.
I presume the market are happy to get that 12 months. Then there's nobody pulling out or anything like that. Give you any problems?
No, not at all. And another reason for needing to do this and take our time is that this provider market hasn't been through a procurement before. And some are less fans of a procurement process. I don't understand it myself. But we need to make sure they are properly prepared, because done well, a procurement process can be a really positive thing. Landed badly, it can be very divisive, and we want to make sure we land this properly.
Okay, so there was one bit of the recommendation that I wasn't particularly happy about, which was loading the responsibility for issuing a contract to Mary. Yeah. So I'm going to propose a little bit of a tweak on that, if that's okay, just to protect Mary as much as anything else. So that it would be, gives permission for the procurement of new contracts to proceed during 2025 with the award of contracts delegated to Gary, really, Strategic Director of Adults, right? In consultation with Mary. That would be the right way around, I think. And then everybody's happy. Is that okay? When are you gonna come back and give us a sort of read through of what you found in your survey?
We certainly can. We could do that through scrutiny rather than cabinet, if that's helpful. Whichever way you would, Health and Wellbeing Board, however you would like us to do that, we certainly can. We're happy.
Well, we can ask scrutiny, of course. Cabinet are not allowed to tell scrutiny what to do, but we can ask them, can't we? If they take
Certainly,
a report.
As the chair of Health and Wellbeing Board leader, I can say I'm quite happy to take it if it didn't fit for any reason into the scrutiny panel.
Well, we've also got the chair of the Scrutiny Management Board with us today, so we might be able to see if he'll do it as well. But anyway, we'll work something out about getting scrutiny involved. Thank you. So we've got two recommendations. I'm going to ask you whether you're in favour of it or not. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you. That's unanimously carried. So we'll see you soon. Well, not soon, but you know what I'm saying. Good luck. That's a good bit of work there that's going to be done. Right, we now move on to item 11. No, 11 and 12 actually. So because they're both about the same subject. So what I'm going to propose is that Councillor Stevens gives us his report, but then we'll move almost seamlessly into our response to it, as it were, okay, which will be item 12. So, John, thanks for joining us today, and Ross is with you as well. So, we are going to hear about your recommendations from the management board on the DELT contract. Floor is yours, and Peter's here. Lovely, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair.
Over to you, John.
It's such a relief to see Peter appear on my left as well. Can I just say, on August the 28th, the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board convened to solely discuss the proposal to renew the City Council's contract with DELT. And given the significance of this contract and its long-term impact on the Council, we received a briefing paper beforehand, and a very comprehensive presentation from Councillor Dan and Peter Honeywell to my left here. All committee members had the opportunity to pose questions. In fact, everyone has asked several questions, which is good, to both Councillor Dan and Peter. And these questions covered a wide range of topics, including governance, shareholders, cost comparisons with the private sector, developing apprenticeships and generating local skilled employment opportunities, innovative practice to reduce the carbon footprint. As you've read in the paper, the print and docs is already carbon neutral, so exploring ways of where can we go next with other aspects of DELT's work. And also we looked at the current and future risks, cyber governance and cyber security. So at the meeting on the day, the recommendations were to Cabinet that issues of this nature should in future be available for discussion at scrutiny at an earlier point of the process. The reason being, we only had about a month before, less than that, before it had to come to Cabinet. And as a new committee, we felt in future it'd be useful to have it a bit further back from the end of any renewal of a contract. Additionally, we felt further reviews of the DELT contract should be undertaken in 12 months and subsequently at year 2, 4, 6 and 8 in advance of contractual break clauses. And we also recommended to the monitoring officer that a mechanism which allows the scrutiny function to scrutinise the companies owned by the council should be included as part of that development of governance framework pertaining to the family of companies. And they are the recommendations to Cabinet for you to take forward.
So I'm going to, at this point, thank you for your report and ask are there any questions to John at this point on the scrutiny side of things? Nothing? No questions. Okay, cool. In which case, if you two could hang about a bit while we move into the next bit, which will be our response to the recommendations. And I will ask Councillor Lowry to do this. Happily, Pete is also at his side, though metaphorically, and also Dave Northey is here to also wave his magic wand. Councillor Lowry.
Like you, Chair, I'm obviously very pleased that we did get some pre-decision scrutiny on this very important piece of work. Whilst I don't disagree with recommendation 1A, I would point out that this is a sort of push-pull process. You know, this was highlighted some 12 months ago, the requirement for pre-decision scrutiny, but it fell by the side, and then, of course, events change through the election and so on and so forth. So I would encourage scrutiny panel members to look at the forward plan and engage with cabinet members to find out what work's coming forward in the future, so you can ensure a timely transition takes place. In respect of 1B, I would suggest we make a recommendation to amend the wording in respect to this recommendation to look at the performance of the service being delivered in advance of the break clause that the council could exercise in year 3, 5, 7 and 9, and this would provide greater oversight and provide some comfort perhaps just greater oversight would be sufficient, full stop, would be my amendment to that recommendation. In respect to recommendation 2, we fully accept that recommendation. So I hope that provides some clarity in respect to our response, Chair, hopefully.
Any reaction to that?
No, I'm happy with that because the reading of that, it wasn't the contract we were seeking to review, it's the performance. So that was clear by all members of the meeting. But that word in contract performance clarifies it greater so that we're actually looking at how's it going, what are the pressure points, what are the pluses against our intention of this contract to work.
Okay, so when we come to approve the motion, the recommendations, then we'll make that tweak to the recommendations. So it says what you just said. If that's all right. Yeah, could you, Mark, please?
Reviewing the performance of the service being delivered in advance of the break clause that the council could exercise in years 3, 5, 7 and 9 would provide greater oversight.
That sound all right? That sounds all right, I think. Did you get that? Brilliant. So, all those in favour, please show. That's brilliant. John, thank you, and thanks to the scrutineers for their diligence in this respect. And Peter, thanks again for your support to the scrutiny process and to the contract making process. Thank you. And we'll see you in a year and 2 years and 3 years and 4 years. Yeah, okay. Thanks. That's brilliant. So I now move to item 13 on the agenda, which is the Aging Well verbal report. And I believe Ruth is going to show us some slides again. No?
Item 12.
Oh, sorry. I thought I had, I do apologise. I thought I was doing the two together. I thought I'd said that.
Okay, apologies.
Unless I, no, it was the recommendations to renew, yeah. But I do apologise, we were taking the both together. I'm pretty sure I said that at the start. I did say that, didn't I? Yeah, I did say that. So, yeah, sorry, Chris. Do you need to? Oh, yes. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So if you'd like to do an end piece to our deliberations.
Thank you. I don't think this would change the vote at all. We have just sort of awarded an IT contract. Quite often what we don't do is celebrate the other things that companies in the city do. And corporate social responsibility is more than social value. And actually the Plymouth Charter, the work that we're doing on inclusive growth is about encouraging companies to be really good corporate citizens. Now, we've just passed a contract that's actually shown us that we save money by working with a local company, but Delt do so much more than just that. And I wanted to give you a little flavour of just some of the things that Delt are doing in the corporate social responsibility world that's over and above social value and actually is about the inclusive growth agenda that we as a city are embarking on. So since 2015, they've been a real living wage employer, which means that actually when they've taken on contracts under TUPE, they've quite often had to put up people's wages because that's been part of the deal. They are really well recognised for high staff engagement. They're certified in 2023 as a very good place to work by Best Companies and have received a 9th place in the top 100 most loved places to work by Newsweek magazine. Now they're up against the big nationals on that one, and that is a really impressive performance. They're really committed to recruiting students and apprentices and upskilling existing employees through the apprenticeship programme. They've recruited 17 apprentices, 11 of those have secured permanent positions, 4 of those 11 have already gained promotion within their area of business, and 2 of those have gone on to degree apprenticeships, with 3 currently on a degree apprenticeship programme. And one of their recently promoted apprentices has just themselves made their first staff appointment, which was another apprentice. They've got really strong engagements in schools, universities and colleges, involved in mentoring, internships and career workshops. They've specifically supported 23 students in depth in the last 9 years. 11 of those have returned on permanent contracts and 3 of those 11 have progressed to be team leaders. During Kickstart, they picked up 4 individuals, one of whom is still with them as an IT technician. They've been an Armed Forces Defence Recognition Scheme award winner for 5 years, currently on silver, on track to hit gold by 2025. They're really committed to veterans, and 40% of their workforce are ex-forces. They're signatories to the Care Leavers Covenant, providing employment opportunities, career mentoring and sponsorship for qualification. They've just hired their first care leaver as an apprentice. And that conversation only happened with them a matter of months ago. They've received accreditation through the Workplace Wellbeing Charter. The staff who carry out voluntary work, they provide up to 2 days matched time off to support things, and have a major ongoing programme of fundraising within the organisation for charities, which have included in last year the Food Bank, Soup Run, Devon Mines, St Luke's, Derriford Hospital, NHS and Prostate Cancer UK. They have a partnership with the City Council's LGBTQ+ staff network. They're moving towards net zero, and their print service is already a carbon positive service. So just as an overview, one organisation in the city, less than a decade or about a decade old, already delivering all of that. That's so good, and I think we do need to celebrate companies like that in the city. But that's a company we own, who aren't only delivering good prices and good service, but also really showing that they care about the city that they're based in. I think that is an extra reason to say yes to the contract, because that's all the Brucey bonuses.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because of course we took the decision to renew the contract with Dow before you told us all of that. And that's quite right, because that wouldn't have been something that we could have taken into consideration in giving them the contract. So I think, just for the avoidance of doubt, so as well as agreeing the recommendations from scrutiny, we've agreed to the contract, and then Chris has told us all about the Brucey bonuses, so that we were in no way influenced in our awarding of the contract by the Brucey bonuses, which is how it should be. But we do pay tribute to Delt for that extraordinary catalogue of social responsibility. Fantastic. Okay, so shall I move on? I think I will. If you don't mind, Mary, I'm going to flip the agenda and bring in the Chair of Audit and Governance at this point. Sarah Allen is here. Thank you for attending, Sarah. The purpose of Sarah being here today is to give us an update on the work of the committee, because we have to inform the council and the cabinet of the work of the Ordnance and Governance Committee from time to time. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me okay? So I'm very pleased to present the Chair's 2023 to 24 update from Audit and Governance Committee. In line with best practice, this report provides an overview of our committee's work as defined in the Council's constitution. Our remit includes receiving and considering reports from both internal and external auditors, and ensuring management teams implement the recommendations and overseeing the risk management and governance issues. Throughout the 2023 to 24 financial year, we have focused on key areas such as internal and external audits, risk management and the Constitution. We have also ensured that the annual statement of accounts and the annual governance statement present a fair and accurate position of the Council. The committee has also reviewed an assessment of the impact of voter identification in Plymouth, and we have regularly discussed the Council's request for a capitalisation directive to ensure that the right accounting treatment is given to a transaction which saved the taxpayer millions of pounds. Our efforts are crucial in maintaining high standards of transparency, accountability and financial integrity within Plymouth City Council. As we continue to face challenging decisions, the Audit and Governance Committee remains committed to providing an independent and high-level focus on audit, assurance and reporting arrangements. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. And more elections work to come, I dare say. Don't hold your breath, but it's coming soon. Thank you, Sarah, for attending today. Are there any questions? In an unusual turn of events, we're going to ask you questions now. So. Councillor Lowry, bent on revenge. Councillor
Yes,
Lowry.
yes. I mean, the Audit and Governance Committee has an awful lot of work to do because a majority of the papers that go to that committee get produced by David Norway's department, and I have the joy of reading them myself before onward passing to the committee. And they are extensive papers, and it can be quite a challenge for the committee to do the work they do. But it is incredibly important work. And whilst they often hold me to account, which is entirely appropriate, I'm very grateful for the hard work of each and every member of that committee, and we should applaud them for their hard work, because it is a lot of work, and it's a committee that quite often it's very dry and doesn't get an opportunity to do the enjoyable stuff, but it is an incredibly important committee, and I'd just like to pass on my thanks to the committee for their tremendous work, please, Chair.
Not a question as such, but I'm sure a very welcome statement from the Cabinet Member for Finance. Both he and I have served on that committee at various times over the years, so I'm grateful to you and to your members of the board, because it does an incredibly important job for the council in terms of assurance to us. And it helps the council's officers discharge their duties as well, in a very public way, a very open and transparent way, I think. So the list, it says the committee has discussed and approved recommendations in relation to a number of things. Particularly interested in some of these. If I could just go on a fishing expedition here with you, Councillor Allen. So the polling stations review, which is just, I think it's just reported, hasn't it? Just published the final details of that.
Full council.
Yeah, that'll be coming up in council in a couple of weeks' time. Yes. All right. Yeah, in fact, it's next week.
Yes.
Next week. But you've got a whole barload of monkeys of polling station reviews to do in the next year or two. Would you give us a sense of how do you see that as progressing in terms of reporting through this committee? Will you be having a standing item every time, or will you go away and do a bit of work and then come back? How do you propose to report on it?
Thank you, Chair. So it's currently a standing item because, as you say, there is quite a bit of work to be done. I think it's also worth mentioning that over time we've gradually been moving polling stations out of primary schools and into other venues, which is really good because it means we can avoid closing schools for a day. Obviously, if there is a particular issue with a proposed polling station, then that would have to be looked at, and we would send an appropriate working group to do some ad hoc work if that reason arose. I believe with Audit and Governance of taking the approach that, you know, we have the agreed work programme, but then anything that comes up because of the importance and the gravity of the work of the committee, that if it's necessary, we will take a further look if necessary, as agreed by members of the committee.
We did have, before the start of this year, we had a thing called Bilco, which was a scrutiny committee, which was Brexit and legislative change, infrastructure and legislative change. And then we got into a period where the government, which had, you know, effectively run out of steam, so there wasn't much legislative change to examine. But now we've got a new government with a massive Queen's speech and a lot of legislative change, particularly as it affects local government. Will the committee have a look at what is coming down the track in terms of the changes that can be made to local government? Because that work programme could be quite busy for you.
It's very much a challenge and an extensive piece of work that both myself and I hope the committee would also be on board with. We're not, you know, we welcome any work that comes our way because it is really important, especially for things like legislative change with the new government. Absolutely, it should be scrutinised and brought before us. So, yeah, bring it on.
It looks as if you've answered everybody's questions. So all that remains for me to do is to, first of all, to thank you for your report. We note that report, but you will have to do this all over again on Monday, because presumably they may have questions for you that we haven't come up with today. But could I thank you in particular, but also your committee for the diligent way in which you've gone about your business over the last 12 months.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass that on when we meet tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. Right. I'm going to go back to item 13 now, which was the Ageing Well verbal report. And Ruth, if you're still there, Mary's going to introduce it.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm delighted that we are prioritising ageing well in Plymouth. As I keep telling you, we are all ageing, so we all have a vested interest in ensuring that our city provides the best environments and opportunities for us to thrive as we move into our later years. We have tended to concentrate on the perceived difficulties of getting older, with discussions often focusing on the cost of health, our cost to health and social care services. We can often think that ageing is a problem to be solved. In Plymouth, the Ageing Well programme is committed to changing this and starts with the mindset of ageing as an opportunity and older people as valued assets that make endless contributions to their families, neighbours and to the cities. We are fortunate that there are already so many great opportunities for people to age well in our city. We have a wonderful natural environment that invites people to stay active and have a great cultural and heritage offer across our diverse communities. Varied opportunities for lifelong learning and volunteering and responsive service supporting people to stay well. In Plymouth, we know that there is a lot more that we can do to support people to age well. We believe that the amount of time people spend in poor health towards later life is largely preventable, and that people in poor health can continue to lead healthy, connected and fulfilling lives. We have based our Ageing Well programme on the Centre for Ageing Better framework for ageing friendly communities. What a mouthful. That means that we are giving focus to creating age-friendly places and spaces, ensuring relevant and good quality work and training opportunities to make sure that people feel included and connected as they age. The theme of our programmes are distinct, but in reality they interact and align and should be seen as an integrated approach to creating the conditions for ageing well. The report that before you and the initial priorities we have identified are the start of our work towards more age-friendly communities. We recognise that the programme will grow over time and invite our residents, communities, businesses, employers and other partners to join us in this collective action. And in fact, several of the slides that you'll see at the very end are discussing what we've got lined up for the week of the International Day of Older People. The actual day is the 1st of October, but there's a whole range of things to do. Thank you.
Mary, thank you very much indeed. Ruth, Are you going to do that thing where
Thank-
red appears in front of the slides?
Actually, I wasn't going to, because if I could introduce my colleague in the room, Laura Jewett, who's a public health specialist. She's going to do the talking. I think I'm just sharing the slides.
Laura, over
you.
to you.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you for that introduction, Mary. The slides today are just a kind of very brief overview of the detail of the programme that we've been building over the last few months, and also some of the details about the programme of activities that we've got planned for that week of the 1st of October, which all our partners have contributed to. So just by way of background and as a reminder, this programme is our commitment to developing more age-friendly communities in the city, and it obviously recognises that, like everywhere else in the country and globally, we have an ageing population. So just a couple of figures to demonstrate that. In Plymouth in 2022, 37.6% of our population is aged 50 and over, and by 2043 that will be over 40% of our population. So a really defined shift towards an ageing population. The overall aim of our programme has been agreed at Cabinet before, and that picks up the overall vision for the city generally, but has that bit on the end where age is no barrier. What we've been busy in the background doing is bringing together a state of ageing report, which is based on kind of that work from the Centre for Ageing Better and reports that other areas have done, and it gives a bit of a picture of what it's like to age in Plymouth, and we'll be bringing that full report to the next Cabinet in October. And what that report does, it brings together lots of data and intelligence about all areas of life and ageing in the city. It talks about and profiles some of the case studies about what we're already doing in the city and what's working well, what people value. It also gives some insights into what people have told us, what matters to them, what's it really like ageing in the city. And it gives some high-level commitments, which I can talk a little bit about now, in terms of the first phase of the programme. So just to say that we've done a lot of, so we've worked quite closely with the community builders on this, who've been out in our communities using the kind of appreciative inquiry approach to really find out what people's experiences are and what's important to them as we move forward with this programme. And that's really informed a lot of the shape of the programme. So these categories here are the themes of our programme. So in terms of healthy ageing, people have told us that it's really important to stay active and strong as you age. They're most concerned about poor access to health services, and in particular, the issues or the perceived issues around e-consultations and concerns that that's driving digital exclusion in the city. Those are just some of the high-level things that people have told us. So in response to that, and obviously the data, the intelligence and other conversations we've had, the initial focus and recommendations for the programme are about using the new revamped Thrive Plymouth programme to really maximise opportunities for ageing and older people in our city. It's also about broadening the offer. We're going to have some really detailed conversations with people around broadening the offer of falls prevention programmes. And that's in response to a lot of the intelligence that we've seen about the fact that falls is the #1 cause of old people over 50 presenting to the emergency department and for hospital admissions. So we feel that there's something we can really do around kind of really broadening the scope of that. So it is about ageing and trying to build that into things as people age. We also want to do some work advising and influencing the NHS around that kind of digital first approach and how people are receiving that and what it really means in reality for people. And also some conversations around access to primary care as concerns around that continue. So that's the kind of healthy ageing theme. The theme around age-friendly spaces and places is a really big one. It covers things like our buildings, our facilities, things like air quality, things like our parks, our pavements, all of that kind of thing. And people have told us that they've said it's really important to have more places to sit in public places. They want more accessible toilets. They like this concept of chatty tables, which is where shops or other kind of public access places have a space for people to just sit and chat, whether that's with staff or with each other. Lots of cities and areas across the country have sort of adopted that in different ways. People really like that concept. They've also talked quite a lot about bus shelters. and feeling like people need somewhere to sit in bus shelters, that kind of thing. So some of the initial focus and recommendations for that area of age-friendly spaces and places is some quite detailed work to work with customer-facing settings to sort of scope out the idea of adopting the age-friendly business framework. And this is an established framework, again supported by the Centre for Ageing Better, that's about ensuring respect and inclusion for older people and ensuring that that's central to that customer-facing businesses in the city. We want to do some work around that. We also want to look at embedding this public health framework called Healthy Streets Framework into our planning and design. And that Healthy Streets Framework covers all those things like pavements, like seating, like access to water, to public toilets, etc. And we also want to promote the Climate Ambassador Programme to people that are 50 and over in the city. Another theme of our programme is transport. And interestingly, this has been one of the themes that people have been most vocal about. There's been a lot of conversation around transport. People have described really struggling to use the bus, concerns that bus stops are far away from where they live or are down hills. So, for example, if you use a walking aid, it's not accessible to you. Lots and lots of conversations about our community transport offer and feeling like it's perhaps not as reliable or as affordable as it could be. So the initial focus and recommendations for that area is to work or to have some conversations about how do we best support the delivery of the bus service improvement plan that's already in place, and how do we ensure that the experiences and views of older people are central to those conversations and moving forward with that work. We also want to promote active travel for over 50s. There's lots of work going on around that already, and we feel we can amplify that a bit. And also that finding a way, an opportunity to kind of support conversations towards improvements in our community transport offer for older people. So the other, I know we'll push for time here, so the other themes are around participation and inclusion. Again, this was a really, really central theme to conversations, and people talked about the absolute importance of having company as you age and grow older, and how that feels really central to people's experiences of being older in the city. And people are really, really clear that they want more opportunities for people to talk to us face to face. A really, really clear message from people in those conversations. So our initial focus there is around supporting the Centre for Ageing Better's Age Without Limit campaign, which is an established campaign that tackles ageism and supports a more age-inclusive society. Also, we want to continue working with our community empowerment team to just grow that understanding of people's experience and the strength, just to ensure that the strengths of older people are amplified and that we use them to inform all of our collective action in this programme. So a real commitment to that ongoing conversation. Another theme is around skills, employment and volunteering. People have told us that they think employers need to move to recruitment based on skills and experience and not age. They want more flexible retirement options and more diverse volunteering opportunities. So in this area, we're going to focus on promoting the age-friendly employer pledge, hoping that Plymouth City Council will take a lead in this work. We're also going to work with Encore South West to see how we can promote the learning opportunities for people over 50, and similarly promoting volunteering opportunities for people over 50. These are the last themes, I promise. So housing, we weren't going to, we sort of, at the beginning of the programme, much like the health and social care aspect of it, our view with housing was that we were sort of aligned to what was already going on in the city. But much like transport, housing has come through as a really, really key topic for people in our conversations, and a real desire for us to have conversations about what does housing for older people or housing as we age, what could that really look like? How do we develop more accessible and innovative housing options such as house shares, co-ops and intergenerational living? So in that area, we're going to work with existing partnerships and structures to make the case for those options and possible housing adaptations for people as they age. We're also going to work with our energy delivery partners to promote and improve the uptake of the home upgrade improvement grants. and we're also going to improve energy self-sufficiency among those aged 50 and over. In terms of our communication theme, again, that's a kind of cross-cutting theme really for the whole programme. People have stressed the importance of recognising and giving value to older people's histories and their experiences. They've said that language is really important and needs to convey respect for older people. So our initial focus here is around ensuring that all of our consultation engagement processes are really accessible to older people in the city. We also want to link back to the other campaign around 8 No Limits, challenging negative stereotypes of ageing and older people. And again, this real desire to actively recognise and celebrate the diversity of ageing and older people in our city. So that's kind of our sort of framework of recommendations for the programme as we move forward. Just to give you a flavour of the planning that we've done for the week of the 1st of October. So that the 1st of October is the International Day of Older Persons. And what we've done is build a programme of kind of events that kind of helps us to promote this Ageing Well programme and also celebrates ageing and older people in our city. So on the 1st of October, we're going to launch the new Ageing Well Hub. Lots of people have said to us, there's loads of information about lots of things in the city, but it's all over the place. We don't know where to find it. So we've worked to bring that together in a Ageing Well Hub, which will be on the council website and is a bit like the cost of living hub. So that will be launched on the 1st of October and broadly reflects the themes of our programme as well. On the 4th of October, Memory Matters in town are hosting information and advice fair for us for over 50s, and that will include legal advice, benefits and pension credit advice, health improvement advice. I think there's about 15 different organisations going to be there on that day. On the 7th of October at the Box in the afternoon, we've got a volunteering fair, which is focused on promoting and recruiting volunteers. Again, I think we've got about 15 organisations attending that day to try and kind of generate interest.
Chair, I wonder if some of this information could be distilled to us, because there's lots of stuff there I'm really interested in, but the slides alone are obviously not enough for me to take this on board today. So perhaps that information can be sent to us in another manner. That's at all possible. Without going
Chair,
through each
the
item at the moment.
information will be coming out. It'll be on, get sent out to councillors. It'll also be on the website so that people can share it. The comms team are really engaged with this, so we'll get it out.
When are we starting the publicity for this?
In the next week or so, we have had meetings with the communications team,
right,
and they're taking all this
I'll
information.
just say in the next week or so might be if we could make it this week.
Okay.
Rather than the next week or so, because time is getting on and we need to make sure that you've put a lot of work into the programme.
Yeah.
What we're terrible at in this council is doing great things and then telling people about it. We're terrible at it. So, if we could get that as a priority, because I think people wouldn't want to plan to be at some of these things, especially the free sessions.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we've probably run out of road today, but thank you, Laura, for your report today. There's a hell of a lot of work going on. We'll pension credit campaign, I've seen on that. We definitely want to talk to you about that in some detail. So perhaps not today, but if we could in the very next day or two talk about that. I mean, the number of people claiming pension credit applications have doubled in the last month or two, but we need to make sure that we're doing it right here. So we need to bring that into discussion. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you, Laura. Thank you,
Chair.
Ruth, and thank you, Mary. So we note the verbal report. And we'll get that information circulated to members ASAP. That's a hell of a programme, isn't it? It is. Yeah. Okay. All right. I should declare an interest. I had my first pensioners discount on Friday. on that. I keep forgetting to ask. It just like it don't apply to me, but it does. Anyway, that's another story. So item 15 is the next thing on the agenda. We have been joined by Temi and David's here, of course. And Matt's here. Oh, Matt, hello. Well, I'm going to ask the Deputy Leader to talk about this.
Thank you, Leader. I'm well aware this is a pretty stark report. It makes me no pleasure to bring it, if I'm quite honest. But it lays out very, very clearly the challenges that we face as a local authority, like many, many other local authorities, particularly around children's placements. The report captures the financial context, challenges, and there's many strategic efforts to address the needs of children in care in Plymouth. Key details include the budget and the forecast. So the budget for children, young people and families is 60.334 million, with 36.725 million allocated for placement costs. And as of June 2024, the forecast expenditure for placements is £41,417,000, which is leading to an overspend of 4.692 million. And this is largely due to the higher than expected number of children in care. We have 521 children in our care. That's 33 more than we budgeted for. And there are also more children in external residential placements and unregistered placements than we anticipated, and that is leading to significant cost increases. I think it's really important to share the figures, because that really helps us understand the challenge, the cost drivers. The average cost of a residential placement is £6,182 per week. But for children with complex needs, that can rise to £16,000 per week. And we do have some placements which are costing us over £40,000 per week. And despite our best efforts, sometimes finding suitable foster placements for children can remain a challenge. But the council has prevented 55 children from entering care in the past few months and supported 9 more children to return home, and that will result in significant cost savings. And the Family Homes for Children programme is focusing on recruiting more in-house foster carers to reduce reliance on expensive external placements. The programme has identified 1.53 million in potential savings for the 2024-25 financial year, with just over £500,000 already achieved through positive placement moves. Children's Services are continuing to strengthen our in-house fostering service, in exploring options for directly providing children's residential care, as well as supporting the reunification of children with their birth families where safe and where it's possible. But we have to be clear about the challenges we face, especially around placements. And it's important to understand, I think, that we have little to no bargaining power around the cost of some of these placements. And we need to be speaking to the government about what can be done to make some extremely necessary changes in this sector. It's shocking, and I think we should be shocked, that this is the stark reality of the way that this market has developed in the past decade or so, when you remember that what we're talking about here, or rather who we're talking about here, are the most vulnerable people in our society. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Is there anything Temi or Matt or David want to add at this point?
So just to add that we are weekly reviewing these residential arrangements for our children and looking at how we can move them back into homes, or how we can look for high-cost foster placements, which will be a lot cheaper. The market is where the biggest challenge lies, and also our foster care market, both for local foster carers and also the national context. We've not seen the numbers that we would ordinarily see during this period. We are trying to understand why that is, but we are not seeing those foster carers come forward. So that is some of the added context around why we've not been able to move some of our children out of these costly residential homes.
Can I ask why that may be? Why you are now saying we are currently not seeing foster carers come forward now, which previously may have been the case? What is our understanding as to why that's happening, please?
There are a number of factors that we're thinking come into play. Some of that has been that foster carers, for the children who are within the residential home, some of these children present with really challenging emotional needs. Some of these children have trauma that foster carers who are coming forward and wanting to express an interest don't have that experience, don't have the confidence to do that. Some of the other things that we are trying to understand from our foster carers' point of view is actually we're looking through those who fostered with us before, and it's not a conversation around the financial offer not being good enough. Our foster carers have fed back to us, and when we look at ourselves in our national context and also our neighbouring boroughs, we offer a really good financial package. So we regularly are just going back to the current cohort that we have to think with them around why and what else we can do to increase that number.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just pick up on the comments that have already been made and just say a little bit more about those in relation to fostering? You've just said we need to look, and we're well aware of this within the phase 2 of the outcomes from the Fostering Summit, at the way we do our work around fostering differently, and we need to look at exploiting every single avenue of where there might be potential foster carers, and we are doing that now and building that profile of work up. So that's really, really important, and I would just ask you and anyone that's viewing this that if you know of anywhere that the council can go where there are people that may well be interested in fostering and looking after some of our children, then please do let us know, and our fostering team will be there and will be talking to them about how that can be achieved. We are having some, and with a whole range of outlets, which it's not necessary for me to go into today, that we are exploiting that we didn't do 6 months ago as a result of that programme of work. And that is already starting to show some early signs. We have more people that are in the stages of assessment to foster care now in the first quarter of this financial year than we did during the course of last year. So again, we need to, it's continuous and it's relentless in terms of the work we have to do, but it is showing the signs of starting to bring more people forward. I think what Temi has said about meeting the needs of the most complex children, that is very challenging for our foster carers, and we need some very special people to help us to be able to meet the needs of those children. And the profile of the children in our residential placements is largely children who are teenagers, 14, 15 plus, who have very difficult and complex needs and would be a challenge to be in a family home and a family environment, and that's what we need primarily in relation to this. In terms of the market, so there's our in-house fostering, our foster for Plymouth foster carers. There's also the independent foster carers that work through a whole range of independent fostering associations nationally. And we've employed somebody that works across the nation with IFAs, and she is really, really struggling in order again to bring those IFA placements forward to be able to help our children step out of residential care. So I think, you know, there are just a couple of examples of the realistic challenge that there is, but I hope assurance that we are in the right places doing the right thing, and particularly in relation to the national IFA work that this independent consultant is doing, that is really important. I would just draw your attention to 1.8, which is about early intervention and prevention and reunification, which Councillor Lang has stated. And again, there are some early indications of the work that we've been doing within early intervention and prevention, and aligning our resources in our family hubs model against our multi-agency safeguarding hub is starting to have impact in terms of families not needing support within the higher end of statutory social care, and we are able to meet those families' needs within early intervention and prevention, which is a win-win all the way around, because it meets the family's needs early, it gets intensive support to meet the family's needs in a way that we hope would be sustainable, and it is the least costly level of intervention for us outside of statutory social care. So there's the one element which is about helping less children and families to need our services by having those front-end early intervention prevention work, and then there's all of the work focused through the family homes for Plymouth children when children do need to come into care, and how we're endeavouring to manage that through the elements of the programme that are reported here. Thank you.
I mean, I think the thing that strikes you is if you just see how few children it takes for our budget to get completely blown off course. And there's a couple of reasons for that. We've rehearsed them in this room and in other rooms in the council house before, which is, you know, in ordinary circumstances, you would get the council to intervene in the market. In other words, to become a provider of some of these things in order to reduce costs. And I think, you know, we still need to remind people that we're still keen on exploring that. And at some point, we're going to start that process.
Yeah.
But I've been here for 20 years as a unitary authority. We've had these conversations on a very regular basis. So there is going to come a point. We cannot continue like this. And, you know, we can blame the private sector for scalping us, and we can ask the government to cap the costs by statute. But, you know, it's the time for manana on this is finished. I think we can't carry on, because every time we allow the budget to grow, it deprives other parts of the council's work from being able to do its job. And so, you know, at some point, I think we've got to snap out of it. I'll be honest. Though that doesn't mean I'm not appreciating the difficulties everybody's working to. But, you know, we can't just keep being the back of mum and dad for this, because we've got other services that people rely on in the council. For my part, I'll carry on carrying those messages to the LGA and to any forum I'm in. And I think you've said before, you know, that there's a certain head of steam building up nationally now about it, about the scalping by the private sector, who can basically charge what they like, pretty much, it seems. You know, maybe, you know, we should be able to be a provider.
Come back in, Rita. We are scoping that work out completely. That's absolutely a very clear message from me, from Councillor Larry, from you, that looking at how we can provide some of our own provision is an absolutely imperative bit of work that we are doing, and it's well understood that the pressures here then in turn knock on to pressures elsewhere in the council. It's not something that anybody takes lightly. It's the vagaries partly of a demand-led service, but it's not a case of people sitting back and letting these things run away. We are having regular, Councillor Larry is, and I know that the service is relentlessly looking at how we tackle this pressure. So I want to give that reassurance, and these reports are going to keep coming to Cabinet because we want to be completely open and transparent about where we are and what we're doing about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Matt, and thank you, David. We note the report, and we'll keep on striving to hold the budget to what we set. I mean, there's two schools of thought on underspends, on overspends, and there. One is, you know, it's slackness, and on the other one is we didn't give enough money in the first place. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Okay, moving on. Thank you all, and we're moving on now to item 16, which is leaders' announcements. I am not a regular reader of the Daily Telegraph, so this information came to me second hand. But we have been revealed in a story today that Plymouth is Britain's best city to live and work in, which those of us who live and work in here know this. We knew that, but it's nice when other people do. This is partly a survey of on a number of things. I mean, I suppose good growth is one way of sort of picking up. It's one of these Cooper's Price. Yeah.
PwC.
That's it, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And Reading and Exeter also saw large improvements last year in areas such as income distribution, work-life balance and jobs, the annual index found. But Plymouth was the best. I say Plymouth was the best. And so that's, I think we ought to celebrate that while we can and let the negative comments begin. I'm sure they will. And then I've got a number of other announcements. I've got, once again, so many. I don't think I'm going to do it here. I'll do it at council next week because there's so much of it. But I would say to you that there's been an extraordinary amount of work done by staff in this council to get a lot of projects over the line, and I'll look forward to advising the council on this next week. There's an important conference coming up this week on floating offshore wind. It's our second conference. Tom will be giving the civic welcome. This time last year, I'm afraid I blotted my copybook by having the temerity to criticise the performance of the National Grid over there, somewhat esoteric methodology for plugging in projects into the National Grid, which led to some improvement, I have to say. So maybe there's a tip to you, don't hold back. I'm now going to ask before you leave, Mark, is one more question. Did you give some dates for Armada Way projects?
I did.
Could you repeat them again? Because there were people in this room who were here when you said it and didn't understand what it was you were saying. Because you mean the BBC? I couldn't possibly comment, but I thought it's extraordinary that having given 3 very clear dates out about the commencement of three phases of development, for the BBC to have reported that what you said as no end date for Armada Way project just goes to show how negative the local media are about the work of this council. I would have thought that work gets underway from Armada Way on the 1st of October would have been the simplest way of reporting that. Maybe it's just me, but could you repeat? This probably for the benefit of the BBC reporter who was here, and I'm going to speak to in a minute. You gave a start date on 1st of October, I think you said.
It does make you wonder why you bother. As the headline is no end date for Armada Way, you know, I mean, I would swear, but I don't swear very often, as you know. And my mum would be more disappointed in me than she already is. So, page 27, for those who have hard of hearing, section 3.2 of the report, zone 1. The Copthorne Hotel to Mayflower Street, construction will start on the 1st of October 2024 to July 2025. Zone 2, yeah, Zone 2, construction starts on February 25 and finishes November 25. Zone, yes, end date. Zone 3, construction starts on July 25 and finishes April 26. Zone 4, okay, I explained the instruction period is to be confirmed because Councillor Coker is about to do a considerable amount of work in Royal Parade, and therefore I wouldn't want to put stuff down that he digs up and vice versa. So collectively we'll agree a date within the timescales to ensure that that's going to be complete within the next 12 months, the work to the piazza.
So that's the piazza, which is not part of the project. So the 3 phases of the project that you described today had both commencement dates and end dates. So how the BBC managed to draw from that no end in sight for the Armada Way project is appalling reporting. And you've got to ask whether there's an agenda going on here, to be frank with you. I mean, I do not understand that. So can you make sure our comms people put out what you said today? Perhaps a special letter to the local head of news at the BBC about that. And I think we need to ask why. Why the BBC trashing this most significant project in the city centre? What for? What for? Thank you, Mark. Apologies. Right, Cabinet member updates. I've got 2, I think, Jemima and Sally Hayden.
Leader, I'm happy to leave my announcements to full council because all the things that are happening that I was going to talk about will be happening after full council. So given the time and the fact that I am due at a meeting to talk about children's services finances in 5 minutes, which is really important. I'll make my announcements at full council.
Thank you, okay. Sally.
Thank you, Leader. Once again, have many announcements, but I'll leave to full council. But this one I can't leave because we have got the most exciting weekend coming upon us. This weekend we have the Sea Fest. Over the weekend, that's the 14th and 15th of September. This is down on the Barbican, the waterfront, Plymouth Sound National Marine Park. There's over 1,000 free activities for festival goers to take part in. There's a free shuttle bus to 50% off boat rides over to the Royal William Yard. Absolutely loads, and I know we're struggling with time, so there's plenty of comms out there. Take a have a look, and please come down and enjoy our waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally. I'm just hoping for very good weather to support all that brilliant activity. The leaders just had to pop out, so I think the next agenda item is the LGA roundup. So I'm going to do that. What? Apologies, Chris. I thought Councillor Evans said me and Sally. Apologies, Chris. Over to you.
So I just wanted to quickly let Cabinet know, because there will be stuff happening before Council, that having bought land for housing development a number of years ago and in the joint local plan having allocated land at West Park, the Council is beginning a community engagement process on the development of land at Stoggy Lane, as it's known locally. This will provide up to 500 homes, 150 of which will be affordable. That will be a mix of affordable market, social rent and shared ownership. The other 150 will be for the open market. This is really good news because at the moment we have over 7,500 households on our waiting list. We have over 600 households in one form of temporary accommodation or another, and over 200 of those are in bed and breakfast. Clearly we have a housing crisis. Us going for planning permission on such a large plot of land to bring forward the housing delivery we were talking about earlier, not only in the city centre, but in other parts of the city, really, really important. We are over the next few weeks going to be in Hemerdon and Sparkwell parish councils, talking with them about it, as they both have planning interests, as well as doing public consultations in Plymouth. So we really want to hear from people as we make sure that we get the planning application right and deliver what is needed for Plymouth. And ultimately, here we are thinking with the big hat on, what is right for Plymouth and South Hams and the housing crisis that both authorities are facing. So just wanted to let Cabinet officially know that that piece of work that has been floating for many years is now underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to do the LGA roundup, unless I wait for you to sit down. Well, following the general election, Councillor Sean Davis has stood down as LGA chair after being elected as the new MP for Telford. Huge congratulations to him. Elected officers of the LGA Labour group have unanimously nominated Councillor Louise Gittins as the new LGA chair, and she'll replace Councillor Davis with immediate effect. The LGA Labour group has 5 regional member peers who lead support directly to councils and coordinate support from a wide pool of Labour member peers with expertise in different areas. The Labour group regional member peers work closely with the Labour group leadership and office to ensure that support is provided when needed within available resources. Councillor Tudor Evans, OBE, sat next to me, has been appointed as member peer for the South West region, having previously served as member peer for the East Midlands. The Labour group also holds elections for group officers and regional representatives every year. Councillor Chris Penberthy was elected as regional representative for the South West region, so congratulations to Chris. The LGA boards, the local government association boards, engage with and develop a thorough understanding of council's priorities in relation to their programme area. Councillor Jemima Lang, was reappointed as a member of the Culture, Tourism and Sport Board, which I'm really pleased about. The LGA Annual Conference 2024 will be held at the Harrogate Convention Centre between October 22nd and the 24th. And that's the LGA roundup.
Beautifully done. Thank you very much. And regional peers, all political parties, all political groups on the LGA have a structure like that to support developments, and the regional peers meet together to discuss councils and to support councils' work. So it's a very important part of the thing. Right, on that bombshell, I think we will leave it for today. Can I thank everybody for your diligence today? A big long meeting, but boy, that was an amazing agenda. If I could just report to you that following recent discussions with the BBC, the headline is now reading work to start on Armada Way, £30 million Armada Way project in October.
Good.
I don't know how that happened, but it's now, that is the case. All the best. See you soon.